They always asked why I lived in a modest home with a six-figure car parked out front. And I always gave the same answer. Because the house doesn't need to go from 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds. I didn't buy my purple Ferrari to impress anyone. I bought it because I earned it. Because after 15 years in counterintelligence and logistics support with Homeland Security, I was ready to retire, but not ready to slow down. The house. Simple. Quiet cul-de-sac. Pine trees. One nosy neighbor too many. But the garage? That was mine. My sanctuary. My workstation. My shop. My collection. And the Ferrari? She was the jewel. Custom paint. Tracker equipped. Encrypted kill switch. She was insured 6 ways from Sunday. And yeah, I had a few surprises wired into her. Just in case. Which brings us to Karen. HOA Karen. She introduced herself with a clipboard, a smile full of judgment, and a pamphlet titled Preserving Neighborhood Character. From day one, she hated the car. You know, flashy vehicles disrupt our aesthetic theme, she said as I rolled into the driveway that first week. Good thing it's not your driveway, I said. She sniffed. Well, technically, your home falls under HOA guidance. I read the bylaws. My plot opted out in 2004. She blinked. I winked. From that point on, it was war. Every time I washed the car, a complaint. Every time I parked at an angle to avoid tree sap, a warning. Every time I so much as rev the engine on idle, a noise ordinance notice. Still, I kept things peaceful. Until one Saturday morning when I walked outside to an empty driveway. No Ferrari. Gone. I froze. No tire marks. No glass. No alarm trip. The garage lock was snapped clean, like it had been cut by bolt cutters. I immediately pulled up the external camera feed. There she was. Karen. In her HOA vest. 6:42 a.m. She walks up, looks around, pulls out a keychain, not a car key, but a set of generic bolt cutters. Snaps the padlock. Opens the garage. And then, she gets in. She gets in my purple Ferrari. The camera caught her fumbling with the ignition, then cheering as the engine roared to life. She waved at the camera. She actually waved. Then she took off like she was heading to brunch at 120 miles per hour. I stood there, heart pounding. Not because she stole the car, but because she had no idea what she just activated. You see, the car wasn't just a collector's item. It was a project, an experimental telemetry unit I'd been building with a Homeland Security contact. GPS locator? Of course. But also remote lockdown, motion-triggered surveillance, and yes, audio recording inside the cabin. This wasn't just theft. It was breaking and entering. Grand Theft Auto. And now, thanks to the internal mic, federal wiretap evidence. I made one call. Within 10 minutes, Homeland Security was on the line. I patched them in, shared the footage, and transmitted the car's real-time location. Karen was 22 miles east, blasting pop music, yelling to no one in particular about proving a point to the snob who thinks he's above the HOA. She had no idea the vehicle was transmitting everything. HS flagged the license plate with highway patrol, local sheriffs, and a nearby task force. At 7:11 a.m., she pulled into a farmer's market. At 7:14 a.m., 3 unmarked SUVs surrounded her. She stepped out like she was going to explain why she was test driving someone else's $500,000 sports car in her sandals. They didn't ask questions. They read charges. She was detained. I arrived 40 minutes later with paperwork, footage, and a drive full of timestamps. Karen was already sitting in the back of a cruiser, wrapped in a reflective blanket like the victim of her own poor judgment. She started shouting the moment she saw me. "You can't do this." I was making a statement. "You shouldn't even have that car in this neighborhood." The deputy raised an eyebrow. "Is that your defense?" "I'm the HOA president. That vehicle violates the community image." "Ma'am," he said, "you're not being detained for disturbing the image. You're being detained for felony grand theft auto and destruction of private property. And, as of this moment, you're also under federal investigation for tampering with a classified communications unit." Her mouth opened, then closed. She was processed. The car was returned. The lock was replaced with a reinforced biometric keypad. But the story didn't end there. Because HOA Karen, in her infinite wisdom, filed a counter-complaint claiming I had entrapped her, that I had baited her by parking the car too visibly, that I was weaponizing wealth. That got laughed out of court, but it made headlines. And those headlines? They made their way to the regional HOA oversight board. They opened an internal review. Turns out, Karen had multiple past complaints, harassment, false reporting, misuse of funds. She was removed from her position. Publicly, the HOA issued an apology. And me? I bought a second Ferrari. Same model, but this time in black. Now they sit in the garage, side by side, quiet and gleaming under soft LED light. And every once in a while, I leave the garage door open, just a crack. Just enough to reflect a little purple shimmer onto the sidewalk. Just enough to remind anyone passing by. Don't mess with a man who builds traps for a living. Especially if that man rigs his ride like a Trojan horse on wheels. Because some people see a luxury car and think it's for status. I see it as a perimeter defense system with leather seats. And in this neighborhood, that's exactly what I need.